Hello, everyone. You added GitOps con to the notes. Great. Let's see. We'll be starting in a couple minutes. Going to let people trickle in, and once it looks like we've got a good number. Hey, Waleed. Hello, everybody. Thanks for adding GitOps con to the notes. For those of you who don't know, notes are at tgik.io. /notes. And for those of you who don't know as well, YouTube strips out URLs, so you need to put spaces and stuff in there if you need. It is daylight savings time, in the US at least. Tehran, wow, you must be up late. As I was saying a moment or two ago, we'll be getting started shortly, but I wanted to give people a little chance to trickle in before we got started. Okay, let's see. Let's see. It is Istanbul. Wow, we are all over the world. Davis. What was the GitOps? Oh, because of GitOps Con. Excellent. Okay. Let's see. Well, gonna give it a couple more minutes to get everybody in, and then we will get started with the news. Anyone else has news to put in? We are doing Git news as well as GitOps. The notes are at tgik.io/notes. Feel free to collaboratively add stuff as you know about it. I took a quick collection of things I know, but one of the awesome things about the CNCF community is that it's so big that, it's hard for everyone to know it all. And that's where, shows like this can help share all of that information. I think I saw a week or two ago, there's a observability con going on shortly as well. So, let's see. Where are we here? Let's see. Trying to figure out what else we've got here. We are at 4 minutes after. Northern California. I wonder what the warmest place we've got here and the coldest place we've got here is. It's a nice day out here in Seattle, so there's a little bit of sun out the window. Oh, yeah, I saw Run J. Didn't have a chance to look at it yet, but interesting to be able to run OCI images on BSD using the native tools. Oh, Observability Con. Yeah. I saw the Observability Con announcement, but I didn't have anything that was ready to go. So hopefully someone else will see something good there. Let's see. Well, we're at 5 after, so I think I'm probably going to get started with the news of the week. For those of you who are running and updating your Kubernetes, which probably should be all of you, there's new Kubernetes out built with different Golang versions. Just take a look at what's in the latest here. So if any of you have particular. This is a long list. Changes. Endpoint slice. It looks like there are a bunch of bug fixes, but it's not a security thing, so that's good. Oh, my screen's not shared. Thank you. Ta-da! Okay. There we go. Now you can actually see the notes. So Kubernetes built patch releases. If you're interested in Windows and conformance, which I know is probably two topics that are near and dear to all of your hearts, but it's important, that hey, when you're running on Windows, that it's actually, going to work. So if you're interested in that topic, it looks like there's a KEP being put together. I know that's been a long time coming. So good job. Good job to the SIG Windows team for moving that along. So we're going to be talking about Flux today, but I also put it in the notes here because Flux just became a CNCF incubating project, so congrats to all of the Flux folks, and we'll be seeing a lot more of them today. And let's see, what is GitOps Application Manager? Looks like Red Hat has built a tool to bootstrap GitOps. And it looks like this is a CLI and maybe I see a PKG. I don't see. It looks like this is mostly CLI tools. Maybe working with Argo types, but not doing much of its own CRD stuff. So it looks like that's a client-side tool, which is good because you'll see me go in and kube control edit stuff a lot, but having a CLI that actually helps people figure out where to go and has useful help is a big win for lots of users. And I know that when I'm using Knative, which is kind of my day project, I really like using the CLI tool to get things done faster. So have to check that out after this. Sonoboy has a new release. It looks like they're now building off the distroless. Looks like they're now building off the distroless images. So for those of you who aren't familiar with distroless images, these are basically really micro images that have like no bash utilities or anything except for what the application actually needs to run. So this is a base image where you really have to bring everything in with you, and you can't use like a package manager like apt or something like that unless you brought it along with you for some reason. But the advantage is these are really small and light to download, and they tend to have fewer security issues because you just didn't package that stuff in by accident. So I think that was the big thing. And it looks like they're also moving towards a 1.0 version release, which is a big deal for lots of projects. So I see that Flux is also moving, but they're moving towards a V2. So yeah. Oh, Lee points out that CLI tools can also give you a nice like structure and idea as to how things are supposed to work. Whereas if it's just a whole pile of YAML, you're like, oh, it's all the same. Let me go in anywhere, and it's just as easy to break yourself. So CLI puts a nice sort of guardrail and guided path in for you. Looks like GitOps Con EU is coming. And it looks like the CFP closes in a couple weeks and just opened. So if you've got GitOps stuff you want to talk about in Europe or on Europe time, whether you're in Europe or not, that's the advantage of these virtual conferences. Don't have to do as many visa things. And then I saw this earlier. It looked intriguing. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, BSD jails are an alternate mechanism for doing encapsulation, more related to sort of Solaris zones, as I understand it, than the Linux stuff that largely got tacked on through C groups and other mechanisms there. But it looks like it provides an OCI implementation. It's not clear if this works with FreeBSD binaries or if it works with Linux binaries too. It would be great if that said up front whether it worked with Linux containers or if you needed your own containers. And it looks like there's another CFP for GitOps days, which has all the bright stuff. And it looks like CFP for GitOps days closes about the same time as GitOps Con EU. But the dates are different. So you can do the preview of your talk at GitOps Con EU and then the supplement to your talk at GitOps days. If you get into both. And with that, I think we've gotten through the news. And so we're going to go rolling into Argo Flux. Let me just make sure we don't have any other news up here. GitOps Con is a day 0 for KubeCon. Okay, that explains the particular date in there. There's a lot of those cool day 0 events. So yeah, if you're going to KubeCon, I definitely say that day 0 is a chance to kind of get in and actually get some experience with the projects up close and personal in a way that the main conference has gotten pretty big. So you'll still see some cool presentations, but there's like a line of 20 people to have a conversation. And it's like 4 or 5 people at the end of the talk on the day 0s. At least back when it was in person. Pristine, fantastic clusters to be able to focus on GitOps. So, full disclosure here, my personal style so far has been GitOps after the fact, where I discover something's broken in my cluster. I kubectl edit it, and then I say, oh, and I need to commit that back to my GitOps repo. I'm hoping that maybe Flux can help me break that habit. The habit of fixing things live and then documenting afterwards. I don't know if I can fix my habit of not having a broken cluster. Can hope. So I'm just going to give you a little preview of what I've got set up here. So in preparation for this, I've got a kind cluster running locally. Oh, right. And my terminal's all pretty, but let's see. Go. Color scheme. Oops. Now you failed to reload the settings because I cannot type JSON. There we go. Is that easy to read? A font too small. You can fix that too. Is that better? Do you still need bigger? Oh, that was just Visual Studio Code for the JSON. I can crank that up too, but I don't expect to use it too often. Oh, I totally. Let me turn off the acrylic too. That doesn't work so well for the display stuff. Okay, so I don't have much running right now. I went and installed Git on someone's reference, so I'm actually running my Git repo on the on my cluster, and then we're gonna use that to store all the stuff that I'm doing with Flux. And with that, let's get to the Flux page. So, yeah, so Flux is, it says a tool here. I'd probably say, given how you've reconstructed things, maybe it's a toolkit, but yeah, the idea is that you declare what you want your configuration to be, and then Flux helps you actually, keep your world in sync with what your configuration is. So, SOPs. Okay, we'll check out SOPs later. And let's see, and integrate, let's see, supports multi-tenancy and multiple Git repositories. So that's kind of nice. Let's see. So I'm just going to show you the Git I have installed. So I have just one repo right now, and since this is all local, I don't have to worry about my credentials. Obviously, if you're doing this for real, you probably want to use a secret and not broadcast it on YouTube. But yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with what GitOps is, GitOps is basically a philosophy where instead of just going and making changes to your production environment and like writing documentation about how you got there, you actually store the state of all your configuration in GitHub or in a Git repository somewhere. And then you continually make the environment match what you've declared things to be, which sounds a lot like Kubernetes. And Kubernetes was designed to be a good fit for GitOps workflows because you can declare, this is the state that I want my resources to be in. And then, continuously you just have a computer, this is one of those things computers are good at. Just repeatedly say, are there differences? Oh, let me go fix it. Let me go fix it. Let me go fix it. And so if you go in and edit things by hand, GitOps will just reset things back. So it's fairly resilient to accidental changes. The one sort of challenge in an emergency is, okay, what if I need to make a change quickly? And we'll probably be looking at that here, how do I unwedge things if things get stuck? But Kubernetes, for the most part, makes that easy to do because it's declarative and it doesn't have strong order requirements of do this and then do that. Okay. And let's see, let's go back. So it looks like, so in the sample diagram here, they've got some information like sources and customizations. And then I'm not sure if customizations I view as feeding into the Kubernetes API directly, but they've got a bunch of sources, different Git repos and stuff, and then a controller that Customize and Helm can read from and create various resources. So we're going to get started here. Oh, this is nice. You can also use an S3 bucket. So if for some reason getting Git set up is tricky for you, you can push stuff into an S3 bucket and then pull things down from there. And that just lets you, use an object store, which might be easier to set up than Git synchronization in some cases. I see them calling out Customize and Helm specifically. I'm wondering, and we'll get to this later, if you can plug in other tools that you might be using as well. At VMware, some of our projects are using the Carvel toolkit, and I've seen a few people who are still happy with like JSON-it. It looked like that was having a comeback. So there's lots of different opinions on how do you do this. I have some YAML plus some extra stuff. And Customize and Helm are two of them. I'm hoping we'll discover that this is, that this is pluggable here. And I see Kingdon pointing out that the S3 bucket's also really helpful for disaster situations where maybe you've broken your Git repo or your Git commit process, and you just need to get something in there. So you can point it to an S3 bucket, and you can kind of YOLO all your testing. And sometimes when things are broken, that's what you need to do. Sounds like Carvel and Flux are already looking at how to play nicely together. So that's awesome. Oh, yes. And when GitHub's down. Yeah. It's nice to still be able to push your code when GitHub's down. Or push a flag change. If you believe GitHub is never down, then you have not been working with GitHub much. Seriously, they do a great job, and it's much better than I would do on my own. They also have a tough audience. Integration with Kubernetes RBAC. That'll be interesting to see what that is. And health assessment. This sounds like it's going to be very interesting. Let's try our Get Started guide. Okay. Well, we're not going to do GitHub because I'm just going to use some local tokens. But brew install. So, yeah. I'm running on Windows, so all of this brew install stuff and pipe to bash doesn't work for me, but I don't mind pulling down a zip. It's not commonly discarded. That's fine. Let's see. Wait. Did it just throw it away? Oh, there we go. Okay. And we're just going to stick this in the root for now. Okay, so let's see now. Flux. Oops. Discover I cannot type. Okay. Looks like we're getting into a debate about GitHub versus S3 buckets here. I really actually didn't mean to start that. Oh, this is good. It looks like that you're keeping a cache locally of the get status. So when something like GitHub is down, you're not permanently down. So that is a nice pattern. Something that I learned when I was doing SRE was don't assume your source control system is up. You might have broken it. Or you might have broken your network, and now you're trying to figure out how do I get my network back. Leave Git over there. And I'm not going to get... Oh, PowerShell are supported with their own subcommands. Let's see. Flux. I have to put that somewhere. I don't remember how to load that. We're just going to do without. We'll pretend I can type really well. The best way to type really well is to copy and paste. Okay, that's going to get annoying real fast. Great. Bootstrap. Thank you, PowerShell. You're protecting me from myself. We'll move that to my path in just a moment. Bootstrap toolkit components in GitHub or GitLab. Why don't I use WSL2? That's actually a great question. There are a lot of actual developers out there in the world who are trying to get through all this stuff, who are most familiar or comfortable on Windows, or maybe Windows is their only development environment. I like to do about half my time on Windows because it gives me a lot more empathy for people who have that tool set and who, for example, discover that nothing works because it all assumes that you have Bash installed and you understand Bash. So I tend to try to see what can I do on Windows and what ends up getting really hard. And I do have WSL installed, and like when I need to base 64 something or unpack a tar, you can bet that I will go over and use it. But I like to also kind of feel how things work on the Windows side, so I have some empathy for that. So in a few cases, you'll get to watch me flail at Windows. Some other benefits are that some of the Windows stuff is actually really cool. I'm not going to show off all the cool things there, but it's kind of nice. If you want to use Git, you'll need to follow a generic Git server guide. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Guides. I'm not seeing that, but here we go. Get clone, cd to my repository. I can do that. Let's see. Create a directory inside the repository called Flux system. So let's see. TGI 149. Flux. Okay, there's my README. Okay. And then Flux install. Export this, and then let's see. And I'm curious as to why we end up creating these so far down, but we're going to take a look at that. So let's see. Is that readable, or do I need to make the font bigger? Supporting multiple clusters and multiple namespaces. Okay, so I'm presuming this is going to be for Flux system. I've used Emacs for 15 years or so, so I'm very comfortable with getting around in Emacs. But I can switch to VS Code. Let's see. So let's see. It looks like namespace. We're going to get our CRDs. We've got a couple of them. Let's see. More CRDs. More CRDs. More CRDs. Looks like we've got mostly CRDs. Here we go. Here's a service account. Looks like Helm and Customize each get their own service account. There's a notification controller and a source controller. Ooh, here we go. I always like to look at what cluster roles we've got. So the Flux system is going to be managing all of these Flux CD API groups, and all my secrets probably makes sense. Needs to be able to write events. Events are good. It took me a while to figure out how those worked, but those are good. Looks like the config maps and config map status. I didn't realize config maps had a status sub-resource. And then leases. Oh, nice. So looks like these will do leader election or something like that. It is nowhere near as long as the STO-CRD list. Cluster role bindings for the others look like they are. Looks like everything is getting the same. It looks like Customize and Helm get cluster admin, and in addition to cluster admin, they get this Flux system role. And then we've got a bunch of services, a bunch of deployments, and oh, you got network policies. Nice. Okay. Let's see. So I'm guessing the next thing we do. Okay. Clusters. And moving over from my Mac. I keep wanting to do the and. Apply the manifests. Sounds good. Haha. Okay. Let's see. All checks passed. Okay. Create a Git repository. Let's see. SSH address. Add a deploy key. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to move that out of my path in a minute, but I want to see something first. Now I'm going to need to figure out where things are. Control get service. Get TSSH. Oh, that's interesting. Get T is using a headless service for SSH and HTTP, which works fine for port forwarding, but actually doesn't work fine within the cluster. Let's see. So we're going to need to add a T. Let's see. And the other awesome thing about GitOps and Kubernetes is that you can just copy paste a bunch of stuff. And that should work. Oh. And I need to give it a name. Let's see. Okay. Flux and Flux Bootstrap use the same customized bases. What's going on over here? Yeah, let's see. Okay. Azure DevOps. Looks like Azure DevOps has a special way to get your keys, but I don't care about that. So go back over here. Get at host org repository. This assumes, okay, me Flux. Get me Flux. And then I'm going to clean things up in a minute. I'm going to get things working, and then I'm going to see about actually going from hacking on things to having things under control in GitOps. And we'll see how much I break of a working system trying to do that. Branch master. Angel, 1 minute. That looks like that works. But yes, ideally, you would plan all of this. Oh. Wait, does this URL need to be the same inside and outside the cluster? Do I need to expose this on a DNS name or something? I guess I can start up a port forward and see what happens there. Okay. Now let's try this again. Oh, well, I didn't actually change the URL, so that is on me. Adding a deploy key to my repository. This is where I should have just used GitHub. Settings. Security. SSH keys. Add a key. Flux. Yes, I think I have. Looks like that worked. URL will fail inside the cluster, but I can then do kube control get repository get all. This is not in all. Okay, get all everywhere. And replica sets, deployments, daemon set service. So one thing you folks might want to do is there are categories in CRDs, and you may want to add things to the all category. Yeah. Kind is Git repository. I thought so. All namespaces. It's in Flux system. Okay. Let's see, URL is get. Okay. So let's see. And set the URL HTTPS and specify the credentials. I should have done that. Create a customization. Yep. Flux system. One thing I'm wondering while I'm doing this, obviously I'm kind of playing the role right now of a cluster administrator setting this up for the first time. But it'd be really nice if there was a template mechanism that could stamp these out. For each namespace without having to think about it. Starting with V2 over V1. Awesome. Well, that's that's sounding pretty cool that v2 is actually source is not ready, artifact not found. Control get repository system. Unable to clone, dial TCP, server misbehaving. Wait, why is this trying port 53? Oh, I've got the wrong namespace. Get t dot default dot service dot cluster dot local. Host key is unknown. Oh, I called it get there and I called it me. And if this doesn't work, we'll just switch the HTTP one. Key is unknown. This is the public key. Oh, was this the one I was supposed to copy? Oh, yeah. Why don't I pop out octant? And let's see. So there. Flux system. And now let's see. We have a bunch of config maps and secrets. Here is our handshake failed. I do not like SSH. Oh, and they have a slick Grafana dashboard. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to run my own Git, and I'm going to switch back to GitHub. The known hosts in the deploy key. Oh, yeah, I would never have found that. Okay. Create source again without port forward. The right namespace. So I'm using kind right now. And so I don't actually have the same name inside and outside the cluster. At this point, it is being able to connect by SSH. But it's complaining that the key isn't known. And Leah was saying known hosts in the deploy key. Oh, the secret is wrong. Okay. Where's the deploy key? key. Oh, you're right. I thought I added another one, but here we go. Cannot, invalid, illegal base 64 format. The deploy key is right. The secret the secret inside the cluster has the wrong host name. Secrets. Is it this one? Looks like it. Okay, well, base 64, and right, I don't have kube control inside WSL because I'm mostly trying to keep myself from doing that. Why you need to create the key with the correct host name. It would be nice to have a self-contained, here's how to get started. But I'm just going to switch back to doing this with a GitHub repo because no one wants to see me fight with DNS. Most of all, not me. So let's see. Oops. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. I wanted to get rid of this and git clone this. All right, I did create an empty. Oh. Run the Bootstrap command. I did not actually. Is this going to create its own repo? Oh no, there's the repo flag. Okay. Flux, Bootstrap, GitHub. Branch equals main. I don't know about the audio and video out of sync. It'll create a repo if it doesn't exist. Great. The chat lags significantly. Let's see. Personal. Let me see if I can figure out what's going on if you're getting audio lag. It's set to low latency. Oh. GitHub token. Oh, it wants me to have a GitHub token set. Just a minute, let me do that. I use the Windows secrets manager, so I don't have an environment variable set, but I can create a personal access token. And let's see. One of the things that I was hoping to avoid was having to mess around with credentials here, but let's see. What was that command? Here we go. Now let's try this and see if it works. Remote repository is empty is apparently a bad thing. It would be okay to not have one. Okay. Great. Confusing lag. Yeah, so this totally looks like every time I am learning a new system. SSH handshake failed, known host key is unknown. I still get that. Known hosts key is unknown. I wonder if this is because I had previous data in here. What happens if I just remove known hosts? Use a clean cluster. Okay. Let me get a new kind cluster going. Kind cluster, delete. I always get it backward. Okay. Create cluster config. Okay. I could have deleted that secret, but yeah, seems like maybe the way to go is just to start over. Since there's not a whole lot going on there. Well, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to get the Flux binary into my path. Okay, so let's see. Flux check tree. Great. Oh, I moved it. Flux Bootstrap. Oh, I'm in the wrong window. That's why. Things in production, usually you can't get a new cluster so quickly. And so it's really easy for us as developers to be like, oh, I just, clear out the cluster and I do it again and everything's fine. And so I think it's great for development to be able to get a new kind cluster to learn this stuff. And I think it's great for developers to be able to get that stuff started. But I was also going to say that it can be a little bit too alluring to be like, oh, look, I can get new free infrastructure. There's an uninstall command. That would have been good to know. But I think that this will work just fine. Because we already got done with the Bootstrap from GitHub. So now let's see. Yeah, we're going to delete all of yeah, what did I screw up? Let's take a look first at GitHub. See what we've got in here. Hey, we've got a README and we've got all these files, including more stuff than we had before. Okay, so let's see. We've got Flux going on. We've cloned it. Add pod info. Let's see. Just also want to look. We've got this is interesting. I did one CLI command, but I actually ended up with 5 different commits. So we started with those components that we were looking through before. And then here's the Git repository with an SSH and the customization that has these 2 files in it. This commit looks like it's completely empty. And that commit's completely empty too. Huh. I wonder why. Git repository manifest. Let's see. Well, the other nice thing about having clusters like this is that usually they don't have anything too important in them. But I say this and then I realize that I just loaded my GitHub credentials in, which pod info is a web application, best practices. Okay, so it looks like this will just let me see a bunch of stuff, but shouldn't get any write access. Okay, so this is actually just going to create a file. Why is this not? Could not find. Oh. Did I fail to clone that? Oh, didn't find the repository? Well, that'll teach me to not actually read. There we go. Well, this will work a lot better now. Let's see. Layers of reconcilers. Know what you're doing. Problem. Secret across specific namespaces. A tool for sharing secret across namespaces. I feel like I've seen one for sharing configs and secrets. I don't remember what it was though. Cluster secret project as well. Multiple commits are from two bootstraps. Bootstrap twice, bootstrap idempotent. Okay. So now let's see. Status. Oh, I'm in a repo because I was going to check all this stuff in. Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to undo that quickly. Let's see. Okay, Flux. Okay. Yeah. I ended up really confusing myself there. Okay. So now I need to run that Flux create command. And let's see. Pod info source is next to Flux system. So this is going to create. Should this be in Flux system? Generates this manifest. Let's see. Okay. Deploy. So we're going to do a customization here. And we didn't get any extra commits from that. That Flux create is just filling out a CRD. And yeah, so that's. So now it looks like we have two Git repositories. We have TGIK and we have pod info. Both in our system happen to both be from GitHub, but otherwise they're totally different. And I'm just going to actually copy this manifest rather than doing the command to generate it. Sometimes the command to generate it is helpful, and sometimes it's just as easy to do this directly. Okay, so now we've added a customization as well. And we should see our in Flux system, take a look at our workloads. Says in about 30 seconds, we should be able to see the customization start. So, custom resources. We got customizations configured, but these are not showing up. I wonder if tearing down the cluster made Octant unhappy. I bet it probably did. Okay. Let's see. Flux system. Oh yeah, now we've got customizations and stuff. I'm surprised that Octant held on to its state as well as it did, considering that the API server completely went away. Great. So we've got we've got one customization called Flux system. I wonder if putting it in the same file messed with it somehow. Let's see if that changes anything. One thing I'm going to point out here is that this is Flux Git customizations, but you haven't anywhere, I think, set the namespace on the cluster, so this is actually probably not going to find the customizations because they're going to be in the wrong name. You're going to be looking in the wrong namespace. Failed to decode Kubernetes YAML from pod info source. Incomplete UTF-16 character. That's exciting. I wonder what it's unhappy about here. Let's see. So I was supposed to end up with a file that looked like that. And this looks pretty similar. Customization, pod info, Flux system, customize true, Git repository, pod info client. Let's see. Fail to decode from pod info source. Incomplete let's see. If I actually look at this, I don't see a UTF-16 character that it could complain about. The default namespace is Flux system. Oh, the default namespace that this stuff is producing is Flux system. I meant when you run oh, Flux get. Never mind. I thought that was a kube control get. This is this is the other challenge with CLIs, is sometimes you end up with two CLIs that mostly look like they do the same thing. And so let's see. Go back here. /1af 9286. Okay. Oh, did this YAML get checked in as binary? That could be a problem. How do I know if that's binary? Let's see. Git diff tree. Just copying this from the internet. It looks like I might have checked this in as binary somehow. Let's see. Well, probably the easiest way to fix that is to rename it. Is there a way that I can kick the customize? Oh, I bet I can kick the customized controller if I need to. Let's see. We've got 2 Git repositories, which is good. We've fetched the revision D3. Which is not the latest. Let's see. Oh, it's the Flux system one. We have fetched the latest one here. And incomplete UTF-16 character. Flux reconcile source get. TF8. Oh. Oh. Ha. I did not know about that. Oh, wow. Okay. UTF-8. Save with encoding UTF-8. Yeah. Okay. So this is a file that I created from the from that command up here, where I redirected the output into a file, flux create source. So I'm guessing that the PowerShell redirect made this UTF-16. Thank you. I had no idea how to figure out what encoding that was in. Let's see. So Flux reconcile customization. Let's see. Flux reconcile customization. Flux system. Okay. That's 7 seconds old. Fetch revision. So I've got 81 over here. Succeeded. Okay, and I now have this second customization. So now I have pod info running, and I could port forward to it and get all that stuff going. So if you don't manage to check things in UTF-16 and you know what you're doing, it looks like this will go pretty well. And it looks like they're actually already using Flux to manage the Flux deployment, which is pretty cool. It's not quite circular because if something goes wrong, you can always just take down the controllers and they'll stop reconciling things. So, if I found that like the customization was not working very well, I could just take out that controller. And a handy tool for doing that, if you get into problems. So I'm going to delete the Helm controller, and we'll see what happens. Since I know they're using customize. There's a way to suspend the resource too. That's probably a lot more handy, especially if you want some stuff to be working and not others. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to call the reconciliation again. And here's Helm controller coming up. So if I didn't know about how to pause this stuff, what I would actually do would be a kube control edit in Flux system, the customize controller. And what you can do is you can set replicas to 0. And then the pods stop running, but you still have the resource around and you can go back and scale it up later. And as someone points out, You may not want to let me near your production clusters. um, uh, but how do I suspend a controller, or how are you supposed to suspend the controller? Um, I'm guessing that the way you're actually supposed to do this is that they have somewhere they have their API documentation, and there's a field on the CRD. Or there's a Flux suspend, spec.suspend. So let's see. Here's the customization CRD, and looks like they just included the Go code, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to do if you aren't doing any particular tricks to rename things or include stuff. And here's the bool. So you can just say, don't do any more customizations here and leave it be. One thing that would be really neat, and I don't know if there's a way to do this already, would be to output a diff. So if you're trying to move into a GitOps world and you have a bunch of stuff that's already there, you may be a little nervous about moving it under GitOps control, and it would be nice to have a diff command for something like customize, where it would tell you, hey, these are the changes I would make, and you can look and say, is this a reasonable diff? Am I comfortable with it? Yeah, as Cornelia is pointing out, using the suspend on the customize controller lets you suspend just one customization and keep GitOpsing everything else. Whereas what I did just turned off all the customizations because the controller is not running. So that didn't just stop Helm from reconciling, that also stopped my pod info and anything else I had in the cluster. It's an emergency maneuver, but it's good to know that there is a better way to do it that lets you actually keep everything under GitOps and not have to remember to reactivate that controller again. And you can see that you get a little warning in the Helm UI, but there's otherwise nothing that would tell me that I'm actually no longer in GitOps mode. So don't do the thing that I just did. I'm going to set this back. And there's the pod coming up. But yeah, nobody saw what I did. So what I did was I went and set the replicas higher. And so now we're going to have two controllers. Yeah, it would be nice to be able to see the diffs from the customize. Oh, look, I told it 2, but customization is running. So it set it back to 1. So yeah, I can only get so wild and crazy if I try to kneecap something like the notification controller or the source controller, it'll get put back. And it looked like you support leases, so I'm guessing that it's possible to run multiple of these if you need to. And here's the nice API reference version. Timeout for validation. Recreate resources. So it looks like you can control whether it will do a delete and recreate, at least for customize. And it looks like you've got some set of additional stuff that you can put in that's not like your customize API. Looks like you can pass patches in directly, as well as creating files that will get passed into customize. So yeah, it looks like it gives you most of the commands that that customize gives you. Yeah, so I can go in and do, lots of breaking things here, um, as long as the customized controller and um, the where is it, the customization, the Flux system customization, which is referencing this Flux system Git repository. So let's actually take a look at that. Yeah, custom resources. It is hard sometimes to link those together in a UI. But we've got a spec that says, okay, we use Git through SSH. We use the Flux system secret in order to get all the credentials. We pull main, and then we report a bunch of information like, here's the checksum, and here's a URL that you could actually use if you're inside the cluster to download the source. So you don't need to nobody else needs to understand how to do Git. You can just, here's a source of truth. Here's a URL that packages it all up, and you can fetch it all down easily. I noticed these are Targi zips. It might be interesting to look at the the ESTGZ project that basically has a mechanism for putting a table of contents at the end of the Targi zip so that things are seekable. They designed this for Docker registry, but it could potentially let you just download pieces if you want only pieces of the file system. And then, conditions, and wait, we have an artifact URL and a URL. Why do we have both of these? They're not quite the same because one of them has an actual git commit and the other just says latest. But I'm curious why we have both. But the other nice thing is you can see they've got both a customized and a Helm controller, and they've got several different sources. So buckets and Helm charts and Helm repositories and Git repositories. What project was that? I was talking about Git repositories and linking things together, but I'm not sure. Talks about monitoring. Guides monitoring with Prometheus. So it looks like you can do. I understand why you've got these. Personally, I would almost rather have the source itself as a YAML file rather than these commands to create a YAML file. Particularly since the last time that happened, it screwed things up. But I just feel like there's a little bit of magic here about creating custom resources that doesn't need to be magic. And this has 2 health checks. Interesting. I guess that's probably going to create two different things. And then that will create a bunch of dashboards that show us and this is this is the scrape configuration. That's not anything Flux related. Let's see. Interval 30 minutes. I'm guessing that is how often it checks for changes. It's too bad there's no sort of watch in Git, so you have to go back and pull. But I don't expect you to solve everything. Okay. And we're going to create the monitoring customization. Oops. Again, this is going to pull every hour. I would probably... I'm assuming that things cache, so I would probably do this on a more frequent basis. Oh, okay. So create source actually has some nice stuff for non-public repos. That's cool. That was not obvious, and that's completely reasonable. It would be nice somewhere, and this is a challenge with documentation in general, to indicate what the magic is that's going on behind the scenes for some of these CLIs. Oh yeah, I should totally have used export there. Oh, what is Flux export? That sounds interesting. Flux CLI export. Because yeah, I just did that stuff, and I totally should have been creating files. And I didn't. And export. Select all resources. But it looks like I still need to say Flux export sources all. Source. Get all. And then I get all of them. Yeah. I'm actually wondering, does Flux export look at managed fields to figure out which stuff was put in by defaulting hooks and which stuff was actually applied by the user? Because if we go and look at this, like pod info over in Octant, pod info, when we look at this, we can see that, yeah, these are the fields that were actually set by the customized controller. It's not quite as nice because we do get this cube control annotation that it would be really nice to not have. But, you know, it's only so much you can reverse once you've put stuff in and you're like, oh, let me pick the bits out of the sausage. But that's really nice that you can do that. It would be nice to have a general tool to take stuff that was in Kubernetes and put it back into GitHub. You know, I fix things by hand. Please put it back into my repo now. But yeah, that's very cool that you can do that for the Flux resources. Yeah, hopefully GitOps lets you get ahead of that problem. Sometimes you end up with a lot of extra commits if you're debugging a problem. You're like, oh, I just discovered that, you know, my cluster is, you know, over memory reservations and that critical pod can't run. You know, how do I get it running again? GitOps can feel like a little bit of an obstacle there, but certainly as soon as the incident is over, you want to get GitOps running again, even if you had to pause it for a moment. So, I, you, Lee is completely right that those commits are modifying the infrastructure, and you probably do want to store that history. It, as long as it's not too much extra friction to get things into the Git repo, it's probably a better way to do things. So I may see if I can try living that religion real hard on my own personal cluster, which was running out of memory this past week. What I've previously done is made my Git state a series of known good states and then a bunch of exploratory stuff that might not be good. But let's see. I think someone was saying we should check out the Grafana dashboard. So let's see. Looks like Grafana is up and running. Let's see. Flux cluster stats. Cool. So we can see taking about 2 seconds for each reconciler and about half a second to pull things down. Reconciliation information, how long it takes to fetch things. Oh, kube control neat, it sounds like. So yeah, that might be a plugin that's worth looking into if you're looking at using Flux. If you're looking at trying to adopt Flux, I forgot that I wasn't showing you Grafana. So thank you. So yeah, Grafana you can see has come up and is running, as is Prometheus, and here's the Grafana app. I already started the port forward, and here is the information on reconciliation. And I wonder why all of a sudden these got faster. Because we have 2 data points. They reported for a long period of time, but we have 2 data points. Yeah, I think one of the challenges for Helm in particular is you probably want to be able to set patterns. See you, Samir. You probably want to actually have parameters to the Helm chart. Otherwise, you might as well just have some YAML. Um, and so you probably have to go in and do those substitutions after you've done the Flux Bootstrap -- export. Um, Tools like Customize make that a little bit easier because they work in terms of logical patches rather than needing to insert templates. And as, yeah. Yeah, I think Helm packages were a great place for the community to start, but I feel like they are a little bit of an incomplete story at this point, as Lee points out. So I think that's about it. I actually got everything running on my cluster. I did not manage to take over my Git repository, but I'm just I'm just trying to figure out the path that gives you a Flux install export to Helm release to customize post render. Um, but yeah, you could definitely get all those tools working together if you wanted to. But thanks for joining me and watching all of my disasters and my UTF-816 files. So yeah, it looks like this is the other repo where I was setting things up by hand, and looks like I was going to get hit with the same thing. So I learned something about PowerShell today. So yeah, apparently if you get text output from PowerShell and then you pipe it into a file, you get a UTF-16 file. Word to the wise. So we'll see you all